What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here. Delarose.com. That's DELARROZ.com. You can head to the link in my description below and get a free science fiction novel from me. So if you like my science fiction thoughts and reviews, I am a science fiction writer. I appreciate people who support the channel and read the books. We have a ton of books out there. You can search on Amazon also. Please pick those up too. Now, I don't review a lot of fiction. I review mostly comics, mainly because I can read comics really fast and get one up almost every day. I can't do that with books. I just don't have the time to do it. If I want to sit and actually read a book, typically I'm writing. So this is a rare thing, but I do always make time annually at this point. I think it's about annually for Timothy Zahn's new Thrawn novels. I was a big Thrawn fan growing up with his books, with Heir to the Empire forward, and I enjoyed all of those. When Disney kind of cut the continuity to those for their new movies, I was pretty upset because I really thought they did a masterful job of those, and there was really no reason to change it. Those were great blueprints for movies, and I'm sad that they didn't use them. But they went back and had Timothy Zahn do some Thrawn prequels, which have been very fun so far. Just enjoyable stuff, lots of good action, etc. Even if they don't really hold the weight of the future ones that they had before, they still are enjoyable enough for me to pick them up. And, you know, when I go on a vacation or whatnot for a week, I try to pick it up and read one of those novels. All right, so Thrawn Ascendancy is the newest one. This is the fourth novel set in the prequel era, and this actually is a prequel to the last trilogy of prequels, and I assume we're going to get a trilogy of these. Now, this takes place before Thrawn shows up at the New Republic / Empire, and there are going to be spoilers in this, I should mention. I'll try to be as kind as possible on that level, but just be aware of that. And Thrawn is in his home empire which is called the Chiss Ascendancy. The Chiss are his people. They're the blue people. And this takes place as he's like becoming a captain of a starship there and enacting his tactics, which he's famous for in future books, along with the Ascendancy. So pretty neat stuff. We get a few Chiss characters we are introduced to, and there's some interesting parts of this book. Here's some of the they've actually got a list of all the people up front. Ziara is probably one of the main folk here, who is admiral here that is basically protecting Thrawn because he's not a very good political guy, as they say over and over again in this book. Thalius is a former Skywalker, as they call them. Now, this was a concept that came from the other books, where the Chiss actually have young navigators who are in tune with what's going on around them, and they kind of lose that ability as they age. And Thrawn saved one in one of the prior books, but it is a big part of this, and that's how they navigate through hyperspace and all that. So the gal that they use for that is Cherie, I think is how you pronounce it. I don't know. I'm not an audiobook reader. But there's several characters here. It's nice. He's introduced this whole ruling families. He's set up a very good world-building background perspective of the Chiss, where, honestly, if you don't know anything about Star Wars, this book's good. You can just read this as its own thing because of the whole Chiss world-building and all that. Now, there is a section of this book where he does meet up with Anakin briefly and learn about the existence of the Republic, and it references the Clone Wars. That way it gives you a grounding of where it is in Star Wars canon. I thought that was a little bit gratuitous and didn't actually need to be in the book at all. But yeah, it is what it is, and I know why they obviously did it for marketing purposes, but is what it is on that front. I prefer the more original content personally, but I think a lot of people who just want to dive into the Star Wars universe will want something like that. This book has some interesting little blue borders to it, which none of the other books have so far. I don't know why that's the case. And it actually, at parts of it, it goes back further in Thrawn's timeline, and you see this lined border where they go into these sections called memories. Now, honestly, my analysis of this is that the main plot was maybe a little bit too short for what they wanted, so they put these memories back in there in order to sort of pad it, it feels like. I don't mind. I mean, this is the whole point of this is delving into Thrawn's past anyway. That's the whole, you know, excitement of this book. So going further into his past, so you kind of learn, you know, what his relationships as a cadet were, as you learn how he navigates with these characters that are new to this book. It works pretty well, and he, you know, Timothy Zahn is a master enough of the craft where he ties them very well into the main plot line that's going on. But at the same time, they definitely come across as padding. You can kind of skip over those and still enjoy the book. Now, the main plot line is there is a threat to the Chiss Ascendancy, and Thrawn is kind of involved in this, even though the powers that be kind of are getting unnerved by his, you know, just sort of cocky tactics. They like to kind of think of it as. Now Thrawn is not a cocky guy. He just kind of does what he does, and it's right, and he just keeps moving forward within that. But it causes political problems, and Thrawn navigates through that and maneuvers his way to be able to discover who this threat to the Chiss Empire is. Now, there's an entire diatribe across this entire thing. The Chiss do not do preemptive strikes. They are retaliatory only if somebody attacks them. And Thrawn kind of shows the necessity of seeking out who these potential enemies might be, who are you know, empire builders trying to take over everything, because they're eventually going to come for the Chiss. Very interesting. It doesn't go full neocon or anything like that. He's not just invading people's planets for their oil or whatever. But it definitely shows that you do need to be aware of threats from the outside. You can't just dig your head in the sand all of the time. There's a fine balance there, and I think it's an interesting point to consider. Now, they discover who this threat is. They're called like the Nicodern or something like that. I'm bad with these sci-fi names sometimes because they kind of blend together. Is it shown at the beginning with the rest of the stuff? No, it's only the Chiss at the beginning. But there's a warlord guy named Yiv who is basically strong-arming all these neighboring star systems into his little fiefdom. And Thrawn, basically, as a plot point, just has to go and figure out why he's doing it, what's going on, who he is, what his tactics are, without violating any of his like Chiss rules, to the point of things, you know, causing him problems at home. So it's a very interesting plot on that level. He hangs out with this former navigator Skywalker person, and then she ends up part of his plans throughout the entire thing. And they're training a younger new one also, who also ends up part of his plans throughout the entire thing. We get a couple perspective shots from those characters and from the character who's an admiral of the Chiss Ascendancy, kind of trying to protect Thrawn and his people, because she understands that Thrawn is onto something important, because he is always onto something important when he's on these sort of diatribes. Now, of course, you know, it's got a little climax where, you know, there's a battle and stuff like that, because this is a Star Wars book and that's how it goes. But most of it is actually him doing research and investigation into this potential threat. And, you know, they kind of twist it at the end by hiding with perspectives, and, you know, Thrawn doesn't reveal his plan via his perspective, so we switch to somebody else's perspective as we watch the battle unfold. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of the twist element of things like that. I never have been. It feels like it's just kind of cheating an audience into believing that there was something there all along, and there may or may not have been. But it's okay. I mean, it was a pretty good popcorn read at the end of the day, and pretty fun on that level. The last battle is actually pretty short. You get to pretty far into the book without that sort of battle going on, and it just takes place in the last couple chapters, and boom, one and done, and we're out. So very, very interesting pacing on that level. I think the characters do hold it. I do even care about the characters who are in the Chiss Ascendancy and not in prior Star Wars books. He did a good job about that, but that's kind of been Timothy Zahn's strong point throughout his writing career, so that makes sense. And that's kind of why I enjoy reading his books above a lot of the others. And is there anything else that needs to be said about this book? I'd say they set up an even bigger villain who's controlling things from afar. That is layered throughout the book and foreshadowed pretty well that Thrawn believes there's something really sinister out there. And we don't learn that much about it, but we learn of its existence in kind of the last chapter. So that's about it. I tried my best to talk about it with avoiding spoilers-ish. Of course, there were some in there, but it is decent. You know, at the end of the day, like I said, it's kind of popcorny. There was a little bit of filler for page count, I feel like. But the characters were good on the flip side. And, you know, it is an interesting premise. I don't, you know, unfortunately with a prequel, you know nothing bad's going to happen to Thrawn because you know kind of where he ends up. But it is a good read regardless. So I'd call this 8 out of 10. Fun stuff. And I look forward to the next one. See you. Hit the like and subscribe button.